everyone. Today we got to play Twilight Inscription. Now, we did get to play this at Gen Con, but we wanted to play it at least one more time because it's a pretty complicated game. But before we get into it, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and the notification bell because board games are amazing, and that's what we do here at Legends of Nirvana. Now, Randy, can you tell us a little bit more about Twilight Inscription?
Twilight Inscription is a 2022 release. It has a Board Game Geek rating of 7.9 and a Board Game Geek rank currently of 3456. 3456. It's a 1 to 8 player game, 90 to 120 minutes average length. Age is 14 and up, and I would highly recommend probably sticking with that or close to that.
If not higher. Yeah,
it's fairly complex. Designed by James Niffen. Art by Anders Finnair, Tomasz Jędrzejczyk, and Alex Kim, and Steven Selmers. Published by Fantasy Flight Games. It has an MSRP of $64.99. You can find it on both Card House and Miniature Market for $51.99. So that's the cheapest that I know of out there.
Yeah. So let's talk about quality components. So you get
a ton of dry erase.
Iridescent dry erase, and then a bunch of dry erase boards. You get specialty dice that come with the game.
Yeah.
There are a few cards. The card quality, it is linen finish, but minutely. The thickness is actually pretty good. So,
yeah,
not bad.
I mean, they're tarot-sized cards for the most part. There are some of the Euro small standard-sized cards. But the cards are two-sided with, for the factions anyway, the description of the faction, a lot of detail on them. And then the dry erase boards are all two-sided as well, so you have a lot of variability in your playing because the maps are all different for every every map.
All right, so with that being said, overall quality, I'm actually probably going to give this a 7.5. For a roll and write, everything, you know, being able to reuse, so you don't have to buy new paper. And I do think the card quality was pretty good. You got some custom dice. So I'm there. What about you?
Yeah, the markers are, they're not really the standard dry erase. These are more like the...
It's the neon chalk. They're called chalk eraser. I did buy some extra ones for other colors just because.
But you almost need something else to erase them with because you're going to make a lot of marks on these boards, and the erasers that they give you are black until the first time you use them, and then they're orange.
My recommendation is to get a microfiber cloth. That really does help with dry erase.
Yeah, because they are going to be permanently stained bright orange this first time you use the eraser, and then they're not going to function very well because you're just going to be erasing orange back onto your board.
Yeah, you're better off just getting microfiber.
So as far as the score, I'm probably going to give it a 7. I think the dice are nice. I like the oversized dice. When I picked this up at the local game store, they had promos of dice for it, and I actually bought this at Gen Con, I should point out, but I'd already pre-ordered it from our local game store, so Rob had wanted this game, so I let him get my copy from the store, and they had promo dice, but the dice were, instead of being the vibrant colors like these, they were the insides. They were still the color, but they were darker, and they had the insides painted like a different color, so they didn't look like these dice. And I was like, it was a really odd choice that they made the promo dice completely different than these. I thought they were just giving you a second set of the dice, but they look totally different. And if you were using them as a second set of dice, I mean, it's almost an alternate skin for playing your dice, really.
Yeah.
And you don't really need a second set of dice. I mean, technically, the rules say to have one player that's always rolling the dice, but we pass them around. Yeah, I think 7's a good score for this.
All right, so let's move on to actual theme. So the theme is that you are an alien race. Now, you get to end up picking your alien race, and there are certain benefits, obviously, so player variable powers there. And you're going to try to explore the world, maybe conquer some nearby neighbors, maybe colonize some planets, and maybe become the best at industry. So there's a lot of things as an alien nation that you are trying to do. There's a lot.
There is a lot. So
there's a lot.
It's almost like the person looked at Hadrian's Wall and said, let's take this up a few notches. Yeah, it's very complex.
Well, I mean, part of it is the iconography is not as familiar because everyone knows what wood is and stone and gold. So when you're looking at these, you're just looking at the square, the triangle, and the circle. And so not really. To
their credit, they did make them the square, the triangle, and circle. I'm much happier with that than some random shape that I wouldn't have understood.
And then, well, my thing is you have the blue circle for this, but then you have the blue square that means the resource, right? So they did use color friendliness, but those colors overlap, and so that can get a little confusing. But we're talking about theme. We're not talking about functionality and gameplay. So that's the theme. I think they did a really good job on the color palette. I actually like the fact that they use the chalk markers because it brings out to life, and it does look spacey. If you just look at these boards, this looks like a galaxy map that you would see on, whatever. So
you can name the constellation.
So with that, I actually think they did a really good job with the theme. I think not only do you have these variable player powers, you actually have the backstory of your alien race. So I really appreciated that. Not only type of that, but you also voted on laws that came into pass. And the warfare, you're choosing which side that you're going, which neighbor to go to war at, or both, or trying to defend against. So overall, I actually thought they did a really good job on theme. I'm probably going to, because I really like the color palette, I'm going to go with 7.75. What about you? Where are you at?
Oh, definitely don't want to go partial numbers. Halves are the best I do. But as far as, I like the space, the look of it, the feel of it. And, given the fact that they are trying to capture the Twilight Imperium vibe, they reuse a lot of the races that you see in the Twilight Imperium, which I appreciate.
Yeah, see, I have no idea about.
And I mean, it doesn't feel like Twilight Imperium at all. It feels a lot more like Hadrian's Wall than Twilight Imperium, but it's set in the universe of Twilight Imperium.
I don't think this feels like Hadrian's Wall at all.
I don't think it feels like a roll and write in general, but I'm saying it feels more like a complex roll and write than it does Twilight.
Okay. Yes.
So, given that, I think that they did a good job translating this into the space setting. I don't know if it really is Twilight Imperium, the feel of the game, though. So, given that, I'm probably a 7 at this as well. I think. Twilight Imperium is such a complex game as it is. I mean, this doesn't last nearly as long as Twilight Imperium. It's still a long game, but not nearly as long. But it's definitely long. It's the longest of all of the roll and writes that I've played so far.
Yeah.
So I think 7's a good score for the theme of this. I like the way they translated everything and I love the art of the cards.
Yeah, I think the art's gorgeous.
I'm going to give it a half point for the art of the cards, 7.5.
Okay,
which is pretty close.
And that's what a lot of consideration for the feel and what they did with the artwork. All right, so now let's then move on to the rulebook. Now, straight up, this is a very complex game. Yes. I would definitely go medium to heavy on the heavy side. It is a roll and write, but there's a lot of bouncing back and forth and gaining resources in one location and taking them to the other. So I would say that the rules are pretty hefty.
Yeah, it's a 20-page rulebook, the main rulebook. There is a short rulebook to play as you learn, and it's got 6 pages. When we were at Gen Con, Rob and my sister both took a session where they got to learn from the designers, or some of the designers, and it was helpful for them. When I tried to read the rulebook, I kind of wished I had been there to hear the designers because it was a heavy read. It's definitely not something that is going to... If I hadn't already played it from Rob's session when he taught us, it would have been hard to have picked it up and got all the nuances of this rulebook because there's so much. And there's so much interaction when you mark something on the board. It's similar to Hadrian's Wall, where if you mark it here, you do this over there. But in this case, it's not as intuitive. But we'll get into that.
Well, because there's a stop and go an element. Yeah, but
because there's some places you can't. It tells you, enforces that you stay on the same board, but then there's other things that violate that, and that's where things get complex. Uh, yeah, they've crammed so many things in with the voting and all the different things that they've added to this, the wars and all of that. Now the wars are pretty basic, but we'll get to that later. But the rulebook does a pretty good job given the complexity of this and the fact that they did give you this alternate way to learn. I will say these cheat sheets are helpful for all the iconography, but they don't explain any of the rules type, Well,
I mean, at least it helps with iconography.
But it does help a lot with the iconography to have them. All in all, I'm going to give it 7.5. I think it does a pretty good job given the meat of this game. And again, this is definitely not for the faint of heart. If you are a roll and write fan, this one is going to cause you to have some brain pain when you try to pick it up. Unless you are used to the heavy.
Well, I'll be honest. It's more of a visually overwhelming too because you have 4 boards. Like if you did each board individually, it's not so bad. But when you first get it out, it is very intimidating. So let's actually talk about the gameplay. So obviously what we said was we have 4 different boards. Now, at the beginning of the game, you're going to flip over one of the round cards. Now, this was created at the beginning of the game where you have level 1s, 2s, 3s, and 4s, and 5s. So all the 1s go on the top, 2s, etc. So you're going in order.
And you have to prepare the deck. They have 2 different colors for each one. The 1s, 2s, 3s, 4s, and 5s. You shuffle separately, and then you intertwine them where you have an alternating color palette. So you have to do 1 blue, 1 black, 1 blue, 1 black, and keep going down, which makes it a little complex to just set it up. But it's intended so that you make sure that the cards fall. While there's a little bit of randomness to the order, it's not much because there's only like 4 cards potentially in a number. So it's either going to be one of the 2 blues and one of the 2 blacks you're going to get.
Yeah. All right. So with that, so you're going to flip over that card, and that card is going to typically give you some symbols. Now, and you have to choose a board. Okay. So out of the 4 boards, you're going to pick one of them. Now, what are the 4 boards you can choose from? So the first one is expansion. Now, you typically can't do this the first round because you have not explored anywhere, so you don't have access to any planets that you have explored. Okay. And so basically, with this particular card, as you get the symbols off the card and off the dice, you're going to activate different resources as you develop that planet. So that one, we're going to keep it kind of simple because like we said, it is very complex. The next one you can go, and this is typically what I think most people do the first go around.
I mean, you can. I would definitely not do the expansion first because you can't really do much there. You're either basically going to build up your warfare, you'll do your industry, or
but a lot of people what we've thus far seen is go the explore route the first go around, and that's probably just to open up some of their planets so they have the options of all. So
then you can use the expansion to claim something.
Okay, so this one again is just exploring and claiming different resources. So you're going to explore the map by drawing the lines to the different locations. Obviously, they all have to be touching from your home planet. And then you'll have the option, if depending on the certain dice or symbols, you'll be able to claim the available spots, which are planets and resources. So those get accumulated. Now, some of the resources go to different boards. So just kind of keep that in mind. The same thing with the expansion. The things when you unlock, they're not necessarily for this board. Okay, so it's just got to pay attention to that.
And once you've committed to a board for the round, that's where all of your marking is going to be, unless you discover a resource that belongs on one of the other boards. And
but even then, you don't trigger it until you go back to that board. So the next board is warfare. Now, warfare is that you are going to be using your dice and icons to build warships or infantrymen, etc., and so forth. And you are going to put them. You're going to draw them on your board. Now, there are certain areas that are marked off by red circles. Basically, you cannot go there. So there is a little bit of pattern on, okay, where does this fit? And then it always has to touch the bottom line, and you basically build up. Now, every time a war is initiated, you draw another line, and you only count the stuff between that one space. So just because you hurry up and build all the way to the top doesn't mean that's very effective, because depending on where the most resources are. Now, I will note that if you lose a battle, it's pretty much -1 victory point the whole entire time. But there's different bonuses that you get if you do win that war. Now, to win a war, you're playing against your 2 opponents, one on your left and one on your right.
It's very reminiscent of the Seven Wonders, the way the battles work. So you're building up your strength, but in this case, you're drawing spaceships that are very simple art projects.
Yeah, and the thing is there's certain locations that are worth victory points and other resources, so you want to draw over those spots. So there's just a combination.
And some of the ships are worth victory points.
Right, the ships are worth victory points, and some of the battles are obviously, like these give you a dice, so you can claim an extra dice, and we'll talk about here in a second. So that's very beneficial. So there's some things you want to win more than others. So you may port more resources. Now this one is the industry dice. So this one is actually where you get your voting power when the laws change, as well as some resource management kind of bits. So you're going to, basically this is where you collect certain type of resources. As you develop these resource nodes, if you will, you'll get trade goods and you'll also get victory points. And then you also build votes. So this is mostly where you get your votes. Your votes are on other boards as well on certain things. But this is where you build an income for votes and income for goods. Now, goods can be used for any face of the dice. And then votes are you use to vote on the different laws that come around. And yes, so that's the basic 4 boards, very generically. And like he said, once the one's flipped, you use those 2 icons and you pick your board. Now, once you pick a board, you're there all turn, so just be aware of that. Then you're going to roll the dice. Now, at the start of the game, you only get access to the 3 black dice, but as you get resources, one of the things that you can gain access to is being able to use the other dice. Now, for example, if I were able to circle a pink dice, all right, so that means I get the pink dice along with my roll. Now, the thing is I have to choose which board, so if I got the pink resources, which board that I'm going to use that for, okay? So say, you know what, I'm going to use it on the expansion. So anytime that I go to the expansion board, I can then use that pink dice. But the other ones aren't open. So you have a chance to win multiple of the extra dice, but they are specifically for certain boards. Now, the one thing that I think you got a little confused about is that just because you've got the dice on that board does not mean that that is the dice that goes to that board. Well, so you can choose to take it anywhere.
It's the same problem I have for the whole game is the enforcement of the rule of you're on this board, you choose the board up front that you're doing your markings on. It's almost like it's selectively used. It's used for the icons on the card, it's used for the dice, but then when you get things, oh, now I can put that on this board, or I can put that on that board.
The only thing
that's
the only thing is the dice is the only thing that changes.
Because when you claim one of these things, one of the resources, you mark the resource where it goes. I'm saying it's confusing. When you're playing the game, when you're told I'm restricted to the board that I chose, but then,
but that's gaining a resource and taking it over here.
Right,
that's not
just saying,
spending. It's more of like when you spend these, they have to be on that board.
Yeah, but I'm just it causes confusion. If you're less experienced in a game like this, it's going to create confusion. It's stringently saying I have to play on this board. Once I've chosen a board, I'm reserved to that board. But then I keep running into things that counter that.
Well, I mean, my thing is when you spend the dice or spend the icons, they have to be on that board. And so if you look at it that way, maybe it helps a little bit with that confusion. Overall, and like I said, this was a very brief overview.
Well, there's also
a lot of complication.
There's objectives that you can complete for each one of the boards, and it's similar to Welcome to, where whoever the first person is to get it gets the most points, and then it's still available for everybody, but for less points. And then there's, like we mentioned, there's voting. There's basically, it's kind of a choose your own adventure element to it, but you know up front what your choices are, so everybody votes to choose which one they want.
Some of them are both bad, some of them are both good.
Yeah, so it's just a matter. I didn't feel personally that the voting aspect was fleshed out enough.
I don't know. It just seemed kind of thrown in there.
Yeah, that's how I felt. It felt like there should have been more to it, given how important it is collecting those votes and the fact that you get income for those votes and you build them up, the trade goods are far more important to me when I'm building than those votes.
Well, I was able to use the votes as another resource, but that was my special ability, so it was a little bit different.
Now, the votes can be important in the sense that if I'm focused on one board and I'm trying to build out my victory points on that board, some of the choices will make you lose victory points on a specific board.
Yeah, so if
and you get to vote which board, and that can be important. But it felt like there wasn't much. First of all, you only get 3 sessions of voting during the game, so it's not like it's a major element to me.
Well, I mean, my thing is maybe if you participate in the winning vote, you get victory points or something like that. But no, that one could have been more well developed.
Yeah.
But overall, though, I think the thing is with this one, there's a lot of interplaying, which I kind of like. And I feel like I missed something because you keep beating me so badly. I think I'm missing something. But, I mean, it's still a good game. It's still a lot of fun. Having said that, though, and I like me crunchy games. You know me. I like them crunchy. I still like Hadrian's Wall better.
Yeah. To me, this is Rob disagrees with us on this one, or he likes this one a lot.
He does.
I think he gave it a 9 was his score.
Yeah.
As far as me, I'm not a 9 on this. I like elements of it. I like the space setting, and of course, I'm not a huge fan of Twilight Imperium, but I do enjoy playing from time to time. Very, very sporadic.
Yeah.
But as far as this just didn't knock my socks off.
Honestly, I mean, all this makes me want to do is go play Hadrian's Wall.
I agree, and the thing is,
all it does.
It takes so long to play it that by the time you're done, it's like, now I want to play Hadrian's Wall. Well, that's another 2 hours I've just committed if I want to play that. But I don't hate it. I think it's a good game.
If someone's like, "Hey, I really want to play this. Will you play this?" I'll be like, "Yeah, sure, it's fine."
Yeah.
It'll be like, "Are you sure you don't want to play Hadrian's Wall?"
And I can see where if you're a huge fan of Twilight Imperium, this is a nice, just like we like Terraforming Mars. I just backed the Terraforming Mars dice game today. But again, if I play Terraforming Mars Ares Expedition, I want to play Terraforming Mars. I'd rather play that than Ares Expedition.
I mean, this is two different themes, okay? And I get that. But if I'm playing like this intense Rowan, right, I'd rather play it. But I still think it's solid. I think the only thing that was a little clanky was the voting. Like, I was fine with the votes because of my special ability, but the previous time I felt the exact same way. I ended up using votes just because I had them and not because they were.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, whatever. And it's not like if you don't spend them, you get victory points, right? No, it was like, well, you use them or you lose them, so I might as well use them. So that
I almost feel like the trade goods are overpowered because you can basically use them as an extra die face. And that,
well, you have to work hard to get them.
Well, yes and no. You have to work hard.
I think your income was a little bit higher, and I think that's where
I built up trade good income early, and I got a bunch of them.
Well, and that may be where, and if there is only one way to win, that would be kind of annoying, as to get those trade goods up, and therefore you win. That would be something that requires quite a few more playthroughs to get there. I mean, I say he kicked my butt. It wasn't.
No, it
horrible.
Was 99. You had 80 something.
I had 80. He had 99. But that's 20% if you look at like that. That actually.
I guess I'm 20% better.
Hey, Dad got 45. But yeah, so I mean that is 20% better. So that if there's a skewing, again, needs a couple more playthroughs before we can determine that. And it may just be the way I play or something. Let's talk about scores. So Rob did give it a 9. Yeah,
I'm probably more of an 8 on it. I do like it. I like meaty rolling rights.
I do.
This one was a brain burner, though, and I don't think I think the brain burning took away from my enjoyment of the game because of the fact that I had to remember so many quirky things about how this board, I have to focus on this board, and I still can't 100% say that there weren't things that I did incorrectly. Because even with playing it once with Rob instructing, and once reading through the rules and playing it, there's just so many things going on that it's easy to slip up and make a mistake.
Yeah. I could see that. And sometimes not even on purpose.
Yeah.
You could just end up, whatever. For example, one thing we didn't mention, like on this board, well, we didn't mention a lot of stuff because it's just so complicated. But, you know, you have to be touching an X to claim something.
Right, and that's something I completely forgot. And then
I remembered because I played that more heavily last time.
Yeah, let's see, I didn't. I focused on the navigation.
Oh yeah, you end up both you and Dad had to redo like a turn because of that.
Yeah,
because I was like, wait a minute, guys, y'all not supposed to be doing that.
Yeah, but once I mean, it was early in the game, and you caught it and corrected it, so we were able to resolve it.
Yeah. So you gave it an 8.
Yeah.
I mean, I enjoyed it. I'll give it an 8 too. I'll give it an 8. It's fine.
Yeah,
it's fine.
I mean, I think a lot of thought went into the gameplay. I think a lot of thought went into the translation of trying to figure out how to capture the feeling.
Nothing seriously broken. Like, it all works. It's fine. It's fun. I just would rather be playing.
Yeah,
if I'm spending this long on a roll and write.
As far as a lengthy roll and write, it's nowhere in the category of Hadrian's Wall as far as enjoyment for me.
I have a question. Better than the roll and write for River of the Ganges?
Raja of the Ganges?
Yeah.
I don't think so. Because first of all, that one's shorter. So, I mean, there's only 2 that are in the lengthy category in my eyes. It's this one and the Hadrian's Wall.
But Rajas of the Ganges is our second roll and write.
That would be my second favorite.
Yes.
Because it's meaty enough for the length that it is. And then third would probably be the Three Sisters.
So this doesn't even make it in your top 3.
No.
Yeah. I kind of agree with that. I really do.
I'm not sure. I think Fleet would be next.
Oh, I liked Fleet.
Yeah.
I did like Fleet.
So
that one actually I probably like more.
I would probably put it in my top 10. I mean, but I don't think it's in my top 5 even necessarily.
Yeah. So just kind of get an understand of where that is for this particular game. I do think if you really like Twilight, you like the space theme, at least give it a shot. If you really like roll and writes, you know. Just
make sure you leave yourself about 2 to 3 hours of time, and maybe if you haven't learned it beforehand, another hour on top of that.
Yeah, you probably want to watch like a detailed playthrough or play with somebody that's already played. That's what I highly recommend. So anyway, thank you guys so much for joining us. We had an absolute blast tonight, and hopefully you'll come hang out with us again. We'll catch you guys later.
Bye.
Bye.